All right, guys. So I was looking for news and Diablo 4 updates and stuff like that to try to gauge and get the community's reaction now that the beta weekend has been over. And I found a video titled Diablo 4, the dev team just gave an update and big concerns. What's next? So I kind of want to look at this and see if it's a clickbait title or if there's actually information in here and things to be worried about. So let's go ahead and hop into it and we'll give our reaction.
All right, so here we go. Yes, Blizzard has been very busy today responding to the community about what's coming up next. Plus, some new updates just went live server side. What has changed? Well, we're going to talk about that in a moment. Also, some notable concerns from the community about repetitive dungeon design, area scaling seems to be a bit off, and much more. First of all, we have this right here. Any word on bigger area for the beta next weekend or additional world tiers? Great question. A response from Blizzard right here. Adam Fletcher goes on to say this. Just Necro and Druid are going to be the expected new classes that we will be able.
That's not news, though. I mean, like, everybody knew going into it that they weren't going to open additional areas or world tiers. It was just going to be the Necro and the Druid the following week. If they were to do anything, it would be a massive surprise. But in all honesty, they gave a lot of access. You got the whole first act. You got the first world boss. You're getting gear. You're getting legendaries. You're getting access to about 80% of your skill tree. Most of the customization stuff. Like, you get to access a lot of it for a beta. So there's no real surprise there.
To play with when it comes to next weekend's beta. I cannot wait. Now, Aaron goes on to say this. Thanks, Adam. I'm really curious to see how the other mechanics shape up that we haven't seen in the game yet. Paragon, higher end items, etc. Have thoughts about skills, but hard to criticize praise when I lack the full picture. And we have a response from Blizzard. Guess what? Check it out here. We are doing a deep dive on that after the beta. So we are going to be getting brand new footage, a brand new deep dive into Diablo 4's, I guess you would say, in-game Paragon system. So I'm excited for that. So look.
All right, so I want to be fully transparent on this. And I don't know what a lot of people expected. While we did get access to a lot of stuff in the beta, we got access to a lot of systems and a lot of core mechanics and things like that. But you're still only in World Tier 2, and it's still Act 1. So while I said before we got access to a lot of stuff, we did. But when it comes to end-game scaling, damage, how things interact, how things relate, how it's going to work with your skills, the Paragon system, we don't really know anything about that. So I'm curious to see sort of where this goes and the information we get. But I think a lot of people that have very negative criticisms regarding the game currently or lack of builds or anything like that that's currently in the game has to keep in mind that this is like playing on maybe hard difficulty in Diablo 3 and only clearing the first act and saying that you feel like your characters aren't strong enough or something. So I think people need to keep that in mind for sure. So Mishi, they were going to keep this stuff when they release next beta. So Mishi, we get to keep everything from the current beta to the next beta, but then after the next beta, it all wipes before the game goes live.
Look out for that. Now, yes, there was a recent hot fix that went live. Here's that update right here. They said, here to share updates on the latest hot
Yes, Mishi.
fix that was pushed earlier this evening. The hotfix contains updates to improve server stability issues. And yes, it's going to be improving those queue issues on consoles as well. And they are going to continue constantly optimizing this for sure. So yeah, let's get into some.
So the queues were bad the first day. The first day the queues were bad. I don't know if they didn't have enough servers. I think there was something wrong on their end that was causing some issues. After things got running, though, I think the second day there were really next to no queues for the beta. The biggest issue I had was a lot of rubber banding, which really wasn't a performance issue on my PC or the game, but more of just a network issue. And I'm sure it was probably just with the limited amount of servers they had in server space and the giant influx of people. We've talked about it before, but game companies aren't going to buy, room for 5 million people knowing that 80% of them are going to drop off, within 30, 60, 90 days after the game releases. So I imagine with the beta, they were just stress testing what they had and checking connections and stability and stuff like that. So I wasn't too surprised, honestly. EU wasn't as bad from what you heard on day one. Dude, the first day was tough. The first day was really tough, but after that, it eased up. It eased up really quick. So I applaud the team for what they did. I think they did a good job.
Some of the concerns right now, check it out. It says, I'm going to say dungeons are not fun. I get it. We are only 25 levels Act 1, but thinking that dungeons are going to be the end game with more affixes are not really convincing because of how repetitive they are. Let me know if you agree with this or not, of course. Now, it says finding a key, finding 2 cubes to open the door, brutally repetitive layout, got bored really fast. Now, you have to also remember we are in one zone. That's something to really consider. We're only in Fractured Peaks right now. There are 5 zones, and I think that they will alleviate that a little bit here, but I do get some of the concerns, especially when I went into another dungeon and faced off against the exact same boss I had faced off against beforehand. But then I thought, yeah, there's going to be 4 additional zones on top of this. So, I'm going to wait and see what happens after the beta. Now, we have another post.
So, I mean, there's definitely going to be a concern. We've talked about it before on reskins. Hopefully, it's not just like the same 20 bosses and 150 dungeons all reskinned out. If they do reskin them, they need to make them look good. With the dungeons being repetitive, they do get repetitive. I made it almost to 25 on 3 characters during the beta, and the dungeons do get repetitive. Granted, I played the same dungeons on 3 characters, so maybe that led to part of it feeling repetitive, and maybe that is a reason it felt repetitive to a lot of people, is because they were rerunning the same dungeons. We only had access to 25 dungeons, not 150 or whatever in the game. Having said that, they're no worse than running Greater Rifts. I know that's a pretty low bar, but they will be an improvement. My biggest issue with the dungeons was what appeared to be the lack of everything in there. There were a lot of doors that opened into rooms with nothing, no NPCs, no breakables, no chests. It felt like there was just a lot of wasted space. And because of that, after I ran enough dungeons, I kind of learned which doors not to open, what rooms not to go in. It de-incentivized me, like checking the edges of the rooms and stuff like that. Having said that, that's coming from D3, right? D3, your mobility is insane. You're speeding through Greater Rifts so fast, you're not paying attention to anything, and you're not opening every chest you see. You're definitely not breaking every breakable unless you have a skill that does area damage for you, because you're not slowing down. So I can see why not populating these zones, at least for right now, makes sense, because people just blow past all that content anyway. So it needs to be flushed out, and we need to see how these zones play in the end game, and what sort of changes happen in the end game. As you scale up world tier, does it increase monster density and stuff like that? Like, where does the scaling happen with that? And that is what I kind of think we need to see with the dungeons in that regard, right? Welcome on in, Johan. How you doing?
Which is really interesting following up on this. It goes on to say this right here. Blizzard, listen, these dungeons are shameful. The combat and art are great, so this game has potential to be great. However, of the 9 or so dungeons that I completed, I saw the exact same layout in 3 of them, completely new.
That's what I like to hear, Johan. Did you have a good weekend?
Dungeons, exact same linear pathing inside. This is a big letdown. The classics, Diablo 1 and Diablo 2, were so replayable because of their randomization. I replayed a few dungeons more than once, and I am certain that the dungeons did not vary at all between playthroughs. This is how Diablo 3 was, and it sucked. Dungeons were not fun or exciting to explore because there was no sense of, exploration or discovery. It was the same every time, mostly a straight line, and it got stale. Diablo 2 had labyrinths, and the map still tripped people up after 20 years because of their complexity and randomization. Additionally, they have added locked doors, which to unlock require you to backtrack through the entire dungeon after you have cleared them, but then you have to run through the door again, there and back and there again. 2/3 of the dungeon traversal spent out of combat, running back and forth down the same linear paths generated since 2012 with Diablo 3. This is not what Diablo is supposed to be. Give us labyrinths and mazes. We've got a lot of attention and a lot of upvotes. It's why I'm mentioning it, and I'm wondering what you guys may think about this. I'm also noticing some of this, but I'm also...
So I'm going to jump in here. So I'm kind of new getting back into the Diablo world, right? But I keep hearing a lot about Diablo 2 elitists talking about how Diablo 2 is the best Diablo and they compare everything to Diablo 2. I enjoyed Diablo 2 when I played it a long time ago. I definitely enjoy the procedurally generated zones because they do add a layer of replayability. However, they tend to be very bland because you're using certain assets and the way things connect, and it's just connections of rooms or rooms turned into hallways and stuff like that. So, and then add in you're having other people come in and you can create a bunch of weird instances, I imagine. Diablo 3 does have a lot of linear style pathing, and you do see that again in Diablo 4. Is that going to take away from the replayability? Maybe, but only if the dungeons don't cycle out. So the person said they ran 9 dungeons in like 3 different layouts or whatever. Okay, so out of 150 dungeons, if maybe 30, 40 of them are going to be unique, and those are the ones that we rerun, how often do we rerun them? How does it rerun? Those are the things that we've got to figure out. So I feel like I would have liked to have seen the procedurally generated worlds the same as everybody else, but doing that is going to take away of a lot. It's going to take away a lot of what makes this game look so good, because you just won't get that in the procedurally generated worlds. So I think we need to see the game in the end game to see how it plays. And I don't like people saying this isn't how X is supposed to be. If you think you know how Diablo is supposed to be, then you create Diablo. If not, and the Diablo team creates it, then it's their vision. If their vision differs from your vision, that doesn't inherently make your vision right, because it's their vision. And if you don't like their vision, then either 1, don't play it, or 2, make your own game. I'm not trying to say that you can't criticize the game, but I hate when people say, this isn't what it's supposed to be. That's not for you to decide. Diablo 4 was good. How you doing, Isa? Trying to sneak in before sleeping? Enjoyed yourself a lot. What was your favorite part? I really enjoyed it. I can see where there's definitely a lot of promise. I can see where there's definitely room for some concern, but concerns can't be addressed until we get to the end game. We need to get into the game, play the game, let the game run, go a season, and then find where the issues are and point them out and hopefully have the team address them over time. This is a really big ship. You can't just turn it on a dime. And at the point that they're at with the game right now, there's nothing major going to change between now and the release date in 3 months. They're just too far along.
So enjoying the hell out of this game still. So yeah, it's kind of a mixed emotion from me right now about this. I have to have the full version of the game to really get an idea of how potentially redundant the dungeons may actually be, because it's kind of tough to discover that right now, because there's going to be a lot of world bosses to mix up the action here, and also different things going on outside of dungeons.
Yeah, because I'm hoping that it's not just the same way it is in Diablo 3, where it's okay, you hit max level, now for the season, all you do is grind Paragon ranks in Greater Rifts and collect gear to run stronger Greater Rifts to get more Paragon, to get better gear, to run them faster. So the hope is that with the extended world, with the world bosses, with the open world events, with the dungeons, that there's going to be enough stuff and enough ways to vary what you're doing to try to help alleviate some of the stress. Think, and before parting ways and going on with your business, I actually didn't mind the opt-in, opt-out, like where you would just run into people while you were doing world events and stuff. It didn't quite seem as disruptive as I thought it would be in the beginning. And there were a lot of times where I'd run by a world event and see somebody doing it and just hop in to speed it up. because the world events dropped decent gear, and they were quick. So it was quick, and it was a shot at a resplendent chest, and it was definitely a lot better than I thought it was going to be. It wasn't near as bad, and when you're doing dungeons and stuff like that, they're instance-based, so you didn't see anybody.
Dungeons on the actual world map, I guess you would say. So let me know your opinion on this one. And then we have this. This is a great reply, I thought. Yuffie says this. And then there's me, who absolutely enjoyed running the dungeons. Sure, some had not the most amazing layout or mechanic, but the overall atmosphere of the dungeons was really...
You were surprised about how fluid it felt and how quickly and easily it was just to jump in when you saw someone was doing it. The rest I did alone, as I knew no one playing EU. You don't have to. That was the thing, Isa. Like, if you had me, if we were on each other's friends list, like, I didn't have to be in EU to play with EU people. I just booted up and started playing with Lamia, and then was playing. Like, you can play with anybody. That was the best part.
Good. And yeah, that's how I feel about it. The graphics here are absolutely stellar, and I think that helps alleviate the fact that some of these dungeons might feel a little bit repetitive. But again,
the game looks beautiful. Okay. Like, there's no two ways about it. The game looks beautiful. I was worried about like a lot of muddied, muted colors, and it kind of does get a little bit muddy, but the sharpness and the clarity and the detail helps bring that out. So while things start to get a little bit muddied and muddled, the sharpness and the detailing helps contrast that. I'm hoping that as we move into different acts, and it starts to look a little bit different. And, you know, as it did in like Diablo 3, where you went to heaven and the colors were a little bit more vibrant and stuff. Hopefully, as we move through the acts, there's enough of a change to help bring that in to where you can kind of feel that this dungeon is from this biome or whatever, and that you'll be able to easily identify them like that. Will it stay that way for release as well? Because that would be awesome. Supposedly it's supposed to be like that. Yep, it's supposed to be that way.
We're only in the beta. We're only in one region. However, with that being said, I do agree with this right here. It says, I'm a bit sad that every seller layout is 100% the same. Feels like it wouldn't be impossible to diversify the layouts a bit more. Yeah, I did start to scratch my head a little bit when I noticed, hey, this is like the exact same seller, completely different area. And I was honestly a little bit bummed about that. I was hoping that they would diversify that.
So the sellers were terrible. Like, I don't know. I feel like the sellers are going to have more purpose to them, hopefully, on release, because I went into numerous sellers and cleared them and got nothing. Like, literally nothing. Killed everything in there. No chest spawned. I got no loot. And when you're trying to optimize that, like, LPM, right, that loot per minute, as soon as you start seeing that, like, you're not gaining loot from doing an objective, it becomes a non-doing objective, right? So then after probably the first 4 hours of gameplay, I never went in another seller unless I was going with somebody else to do something, because they weren't guaranteed to give me anything. And while it didn't take me long to clear them, maybe 30 seconds or a minute, plus loading time going in and out or whatever, for absolutely no gear didn't make any sense. One thing I did notice is it seems like certain sellers had a gold icon by them and certain ones didn't. So maybe it just depends on when you load in. Maybe you just have to look at your map and see if that particular seller at that time has loot or not. And maybe that's how you determine if it's worth doing. If so, those little UI elements need to be explained, because as it stands now, it's a lot of just speculation.
Bit more, and hopefully they can down the road. And we've got to talk about this one right here. It goes on to say this: area level scaling when other players are present feels weird. I was running around in the snow at around level 20 with my barbarian, clearing out goat mobs to get to an objective. They were pretty easy, but still had to be careful. They took a few hits before dying. I'm using whirlwind and dual wield, whatever
Barbarian was so underpowered in the beta compared to everything else.
That's called, and reasonably kitted with mostly legendary items. At level 7 sorcerer runs past me using lightning and just clears the screen with 1 to 2 casts. Am I imagining this? Feeling weaker as you level up is disheartening. This experience would have been much better if I was solo. That being said, I've had a good experience doing world events with similarly leveled players basically rescuing each other. That feels great. So this is what I was kind of a little bit apprehensive.
So I'm going to jump into this. So it appears that unless you are in an over-leveled zone, so like Lamia and I were playing, and we were in a level 25 zone. It was said 25 plus. And Lamia was 23 and I was 19. We were in that zone clearing a fortress. Those monsters hurt. Like those were tough because they stayed like level 25 or level 27, and I was level 19 and Lamia was level 23 or whatever she was at the time. And that's the way the scaling seems to work. However, if you are in a level 5 plus zone, right, and you are level 50 and the other person is level 5, they will be on their screen, they're fighting level 5s, and you are fighting level 50s. So the damage scales proportionately to how you do your damage up to what I'm guessing is going to be the monster cap of 100. After that, it's going to change. It's the exact same system they did in WoW. Yep. And it seemingly will help prevent some power leveling because of the way things are going to work. Now, if you find yourself parallel instance existence, exactly. Now, if you find yourself in a zone that is over level, both of you, then those monsters will be over level. This is a nice way to make sure everybody feels like they contribute. And you see it in WoW, and you see it in Fallout 76. It doesn't prevent you. What it does is you'll probably still be able to power level people, but it allows everybody to feel like they contribute evenly in a zone. So if you have your level 80 friend coming to help you level, you'll still feel like you're doing damage, even though you're vastly different levels or experience. The only place you'll notice this is in a zone that is over your minimum level as a base scale. So if your friend was to take you to a level 80 zone, everything will be at minimum level 80, and that is where you would start to see some of the difference. So I can see where for some people that aren't used to this type of system, it's going to feel a little jarring. But the way it's set up is if you are over the zone level, then everything is going to scale to you and allow everyone to contribute evenly. Hopefully that makes sense. It was nice because it made it to where you could contribute, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Does it hurt your ego to be a level 25 watching a level 8 kill things faster than you? Yeah, I mean, that's an ego check, but you also know where you're at and about the parallel existence. Once you know about that, it's no longer an ego check.
With the Diablo instances and having other players in your experience is, yeah, in some cases, they can actually take away from your own experience. However, overall, I myself have been really enjoying like the world bosses and things like that.
It's definitely better. I do hate how D3 basically meant if people higher level then you felt useless, and that's pretty much what happened. And you will, right? Like if we're playing on like World Tier 4 or World Tier 8 or however max World Tier there are, and you're fighting level 100 monsters and you're a level 1, you're going to feel worthless. But if you're in an open world zone or something like that that scales proportionately, then yeah, you'll actually be able to feel like you can contribute, and that allows you to have fun while allowing them to still loot, gain XP, gain Paragon, and gain items while helping you in a lower zone. So it's a win-win for both people.
Also, you have to remember that, yes, this is a beta. You are only level 25, and there are things coming up here. This is a great post here. It says, seeing many comments complaining about the mob density, repetitive dungeons, lack of interesting items, etc. Just remember, you are on a low difficulty, only level 25, and in the first act. It's not realistic to apply in-game thinking to a moment in time that will take up virtually no time in your Diablo 4 journey. I think many people are hitting level 25 in the beta, then going into the in-game mode. Of course, it won't feel good at that point. So, yeah, there's a lot to be discovered here. We haven't even gotten into the Paragon board and that sort of thing to really dissect and judge this game harshly. Also, a lot of people are noting that, yeah, when you're playing as Barbarian, you're seeing these.
So before I get too into this, yeah, we're missing 45 skill points in our build, plus the additional ones you get from exploring each zone, right? And each zone is going to give you additional skill points. And it is a very fair point to go. Most people are going to blow through this content. They're going to enjoy it one time. The one time you play on your first character, you will sit, you'll listen to the lore, you'll pay attention, you'll look at the map, you'll explore, you'll take it all in, and you'll love it. And then after that, you're going to hit the escape key just as fast as you can to skip every fucking cutscene, and you're going to blow by every wall, every speck of dust on a bookshelf, in a corner, every breakable, and you're just going to blow by it all. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to invest a lot of resources in things that you are not going to spend a lot of time in. These are dungeons in the open world. They're not in-game dungeons. They're not finely tuned. Everybody definitely needs to take a step back and go, hey, we are at the very beginning of the game. Granted, they gave us access to a lot of things, but in the life of the game and what you're going to do as an in-game character, it's still the tip of the iceberg, right? Yeah, we're missing so much. It's just like a taste of the game. It was a lot. It was a lot of the game, and I think that's why people are like thinking about the end game, because there was a lot there, but it's not a lot. Do you know what I mean? I personally like the fact no matter what you did with your build, as long as you worked with what dropped, you seem to be doing damage and survivability. The only character I had any issues with was my Barbarian. I think that the Barbarian's a little undertuned. Everything else, it literally felt like you could just pick anything. As long as you spec'd into one path, right? So if you were an archer, or if you were a rogue and you went full bow, and you decided to go poison, or you decided to go like shadow, or whatever you did, and you put all of your points into that at the beginning of the game, right? Because you don't have a lot of points, so you can't put 1 point here and 2 points here, and maybe I'll pick this. No, you had to focus. But if you did that, your character was perfectly viable all the way through. You always struggled with melee, but you adored your sorcerer. Sorcerer was great. Rogue was really good. I liked my Barbarian, but I just couldn't put out enough damage to do what I wanted to do. It had a lot of tankability. Like if I was to run it and pull a room and just stay alive while like my team destroyed everything, I think that's where it would shine. And maybe that's what they're doing with it. Silk Smooth. Oh, dude, the rogues like dash and traps. Rogue you really struggled with? Yeah. And see, I think everybody's going to have a different take and depend on their play style. And I think that's kind of the best part, right? But yeah, it definitely seemed like pretty much whatever you wanted to do with your builds, you were fine. Frozen Orb and Hydra, Mass Murder. I went electric. Like my electric, like the electric build, nothing could survive it. And with my rogue, I went shadow at one point and was just doing like explosion for ad clear, and then said fuck it and switched over to poison, and I could melt entire bosses in like 30 seconds. 30 seconds, boss was dead. As fast as I could spin my points, the boss was dead. That's just you. Now, I think it's definitely and it's about which legendaries you got to drop and everything else. I think if you had all the right legendaries and stuff drop for your build, it made it a lot better. Do twice as much damage. Makes sense. Love the combo point system they added to the rogue from WoW. Oh, no, I think they did great. I think there's a lot of room to build. I think the game's going to be fun.
Powerful sorcerers come by. I think there's going to be some patches done to nerf and also buff things. So that's going to be interesting to see what Blizzard does there. So we'll see what happens.
There's going to be balance patches, right? That's going to happen throughout seasons and everything else. That happens in every game. The hope is that they can do balance changes quickly and with the least amount of disruption to the live game as possible. Just can't wait to test Necro and Druid this coming weekend. Exactly. I've got 3 characters currently about level 25. I've got 100,000 gold stacked up. I think I've got all of the aspects unlocked. And I've got weapons and armor for all of those characters as soon as I start them. Beta, they'll boost it. I honestly think, Johnny, that they were afraid that the armament system was going to overtune him. But, and maybe it does in the end game, because that's the thing. Like, the Barbarian feels underperforming compared to the other two right now. But this isn't the end game. This is leveling. And that could completely change at high tier once you level them out. You know what I mean? Like, once you have full access to all of the legendaries, it could completely change.
And once again, people are trying to enjoy the game. And one of the big issues with a game like this is that there are just haters that will not allow people to enjoy the game. So, yeah, I'll talk about why are people.
But you got to realize how many people love the Barb. And maybe, like I said, maybe I just didn't have the right gear drop. Maybe I just didn't have the right gear drop. So we just have to give it time. I think that people love the Barb, and he's going to be the tank class. So you have to make sure he can tank. And in order to do that, maybe that's what they're looking at, is he's going to be your tank. He's not going to deal a lot of damage, because tanks don't need to deal a lot of damage. He's got a taunt. He'll pull everything in the room, and then his job is just to stay alive. So, see, Druid going bear form also is a possible tank. As long as it's permanent. If it's bear form where it's just like 30 seconds to attack and then come out of it, we need to see the Druid.
People being so rude to the ones that actually enjoyed the beta. It's an actual question. I would like to know why 100%. It seems that as soon as someone posts a positive comment or something about the beta, everyone is taking that chance to be an absolute jerk about it all. If you didn't enjoy the beta, okay, cool. For you, some of us did. And it's pretty infuriating when we are being told we just have bad taste in games. Just want to understand the thought process behind trying to ruin someone else's positive experience. Yeah, again, you know, I just say let people enjoy what they want to enjoy, and I'm having a hell of a time in the beta right now. So, yeah, we'll have to wait and see if they...
It's the internet. It is the internet. There are people that are trolls. There are people that are going to shit on everything you do. There are elitists. There are purists. Whoever was, like, saying that they were surprised, I am not surprised about anything people say on the internet. Anything people say or do on the internet does not surprise me. And if you don't have skin of iron, you probably shouldn't be on the internet.
They iron out.
Sorry if that's a hot take.
Some of these issues in the future, of course. All right, time to go over your top comments. Remember, leave a comment down below. It could end up in a future video. Also, check out that big PS5, Xbox Series X, and Nintendo Switch giveaway in the pinned comment as well. But my most recent video was about this, all new updates from the dev team. Things are changing even in the beta, and it's great to see that I'm able to get into the game a lot faster now, although I still think there should be an offline option. Now, Ryan goes on to say this right here.
You can't have an offline you can't have an offline option. You cannot have an offline option and an online option, because you will have too much access to your own files, and item duplication and cheating and things like that are going to be a problem. That's why there has to be one online persistent world. I know it sucks. The only option for offline would have to be a 100% offline character that never, ever, ever goes online ever. And I don't know how well that works with their coding.
He says, loving the Barbarian and the challenge. It's definitely tougher, but it makes it more fun and exciting given how easy Diablo 3 felt, in my opinion. Now, the Den Mother, though, has been by far the toughest challenge. It took me about 4 times to beat her after shifting around my build to try and keep up with that speed, but I haven't died at any other point. So far, the beta has been really good for a beta. Excited for the release.
So I've heard a lot of people, and I've seen like stuff on Twitter, people, like, it took me 6 attempts to beat, I don't know, the Den Mother, or the effigy or whatever you have to fight towards the end of the campaign or whatever. The only boss I ever had any problems with was one during the Pilgrim Path, and that was because it literally one-shot my Barbarian. If it wasn't for the fact that I literally died in one hit, those were like the only times I ever died, was like instant deaths. I didn't find the difficulty scale to be that high. Potions dropped plentiful And the fact that while you didn't have a 30-second cooldown on your potion, you only carried 5, but bosses shot out potions like every 3rd, 4th, or 5th of their health. It felt like you had enough potions and stuff to survive. And I mean, I know everybody's skill in gaming is different, so it's not a referendum on, people's skill level. But I didn't think that it was that challenging personally. But you guys will have to let me know if you had a different experience for sure. I mean, you were worried about the online aspect, but after the first weekend, that worry's mostly done. That's what I like to hear. I was worried about running into multiplayer and stuff like that, but it seemed like they did a good job.
Of the finished product. Exactly. It's a beta, and I myself have been having a blast with the Barbarian. I also agree. I do like the challenge. There's been complaints that the Barbarian is not powerful, but I did.
You have an opinion? I want to hear it. That is what I'm thinking. They need to go to the church of our Lord and Savior, Get Good. They need to get some advance, and they need to stop touching fucking grass. Those are the minimums. Like, you do that, and you're good to go.
Dig the challenge. I want more challenge in a game like this. Now, Perplex Wolf goes on to say this. I like the majority of what I've played. It definitely looks more like Diablo than Diablo 3 did to me. The skill tree is nice but simple. Some synergy between them would be cool. Offline
You need to stop touching grass, Nisa.
mode would be nice. I'd like to see them change the UI, though. It's not bad if it were any other game, but being Diablo, I'd like to see it fit the theme more.
All right, before he even talks, because I don't know what he's going to say, and really, the thing I didn't like was the fact that you couldn't move the windows. A lot of the windows were static, and they were static in places that didn't feel good. As a PC gamer, some of the pop-ups and some of the windows and some of the UIs did not feel good, or did not feel like they were in a good placement to me. That doesn't mean they were bad, and I don't think the design of the windows or the design of the pop-ups or anything looked bad. There were weird choices, like you couldn't sell all rare items, but you could scrap all rare items, and some things like that I've heard people talk about, and I feel like those are fair to address. And there were some things you couldn't bulk do, bulk selects and stuff like that. Those are fair criticisms, but I don't think the UI was that bad.
Yeah, and what they've done here, oh, there's a lot more. Jeez. Okay, it says the dungeons did get repetitive as I expected, but I like how they looked visually, but the overall design grows old fast, and you don't really get much after defeating the boss. I do like that a bunch of them have their own little lore, and even some nice little side quests attached to them. The overall map so far is great to me. I love it. A lot of people want a transparent map, though.
Yeah, I would like to be able to toggle my map transparency. Because the map is so big, I would like to be able to pull it up, and then when I pull it up, like, have it toggle transparent or not, to where you could just see like the overlay of the map behind you while you're running around with the map over your screen. So you can kind of tell where you're going, especially once they add horses and fast travel and stuff like that, to where you're riding around quickly. It'll be a lot easier to navigate, because right now you have to pin everything. So if you want to get from point 1 to point 2 or point A to point B, you need to pin it on your map, just because if not, you're constantly toggling your map up and down. So transparent map would definitely be 10 times better.
I really like the transmog and how you unlock new styles. I hope they add more color options, though. Even at low level, it was nice to be able to make my character look the way I want.
I do like the transmog system. I like how you transmog your slot and not the specific gear. I do think you need more color options, especially because it's not like a color per like accent or whatever. They did like a Destiny style shader system where it's just got like 4 colors on it, and you just pick it and it just applies them at random. Well, not at random, but it just applies them, and it doesn't feel like it adds enough color choices. My guess is that there's going to be a very basic color palette that you get for free, and then everything else you have to buy. That's going to be my guess. Yeah, I'm thinking they'll either unlock by region, and then there'll be a bunch of them. Battle Pass, Region Pass, or Battle Pass, you'll get them by region. You'll get them for completing the campaign, and then you'll be able to buy them from the cash shop. You really love the transmog? I really like the transmog system. I really, really did. Terea, how you doing today? I like the transmog system. I can definitely see where there's room in there for monetization.
I've only played the rogue so far, but I like him a lot. Settings, trap, setting traps that chill and freeze, plus throwing smoke bombs to daze and having skills and gear that increase damage when they are vulnerable. Then unloading with barrage is fun. And to think, there's so many different classes to play around with, and I think that's one of the elements that is definitely not repetitive, of course, and really adds to the fun that is Diablo 4. But there it is, the latest happenings around Diablo. I'll keep you guys.
All right, guys. Well, so there's that. Normally with these videos, especially when I find these, it definitely has more of a clickbait title about like all the big concerns. There really weren't a lot of big concerns brought up. Not anything too major. So that's the end of the video. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments. And as always, have a great day.